I'm going to start by reading the first 6 verses of Psalm 139. To the choir master, a psalm of David. O Lord, you have searched me and known me. You know when I sit down and when I rise up. You discern my thoughts from afar. You search out my path and my lying down, and are acquainted with all my ways. Even before a word is on my tongue, behold, O Lord, you know it altogether. You hem me in behind and before, and lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is high. I cannot attain it. The American writer and cartoonist Tim Crader once wrote, "If you want the rewards of being loved, you have to submit to the mortifying ordeal of being known." And it's a quote that captures quite well the very strange attitude we all have to being known. We crave it because we want to be loved, but at the same time we fear it because we could be hurt. We want people in our life who really get us, and throughout our lives we're looking for and making new friends, reaching out to and connecting with new people of all sorts. We want to know them, and we want them to know us. But at the same time as we're looking to increase our social circle, we're also devising ways of keeping those same people out of the most tender parts of our personalities and away from any knowledge about us that may give them the power to hurt us. And so we try to navigate this tricky path between avoiding being known and achieving the level of intimacy that we crave and that we need. And so we try to control how much each person in our lives knows about us. We release the level of knowledge that we feel is safe, like opening the sluice gate of a great dam. We want to relieve the pressure caused by floodwaters upstream, but we don't want to flood the communities that are downstream. We open the valve on our personalities, our history, our desires, our faults, just enough for others to know something about us, but not so much that we are left feeling vulnerable. But sometimes we get it wrong, and then we have to suffer the consequences. If we get it wrong by releasing too little knowledge, then we have an internal build-up of pressure, which is a sense of isolation, loneliness, perhaps even desolation. But if we get it wrong by releasing too much information, then we're exposed to the anxiety that this information has compromised us in some way, that it could be used against us, or for some of us, the anxiety that it could even damage the person that we've told. And this is why I guess it's such a relief on those rare occasions to find someone we can really trust and who really gets us. The dangers and threats linked to this tricky process of self-disclosure disappear, and with a sigh of relief, we can offload. Now, in order to manage this fraught process, some of us have gone to the great length of constructing a false self that keeps the true self away from prying eyes. Now, a false self can be hugely successful in the world, usually because this false self has been built to match what other people want or need us to be. And so false selves can be hugely competent, very strong, or extremely gregarious. And this is why so many people with false selves rise to the very top of their organization or their company or even their country. But all the while, this false self is really protecting the real me from the threats and the dangers of being known. False selves make true intimacy impossible. And I guess that's really what they're designed to do. Even though false selves can be the life and soul of the party. Their true function is to keep the true self, which we feel is extremely vulnerable, locked up and away from the gaze of everyone else. But the real tragedy of the false self is that quite frequently we've used it for so long that we've actually forgotten what the true self is really like. Like the man in the iron mask, no one, not even we, know what we look like. And the result is an experience of isolation and of emptiness. And so a God who knows us as intimately as this psalm that we've just read from suggests can, I guess, seem quite intrusive and even threatening. We need our space. We need our privacy. We need our secrets. And so is it really a good thing that there is a God who knows everything about us? What makes this worse is that many of us have grown up with the idea that this God will use what he knows about us against us. He knows our dark secrets and he's going to use this against us. He's going to use it to punish us. And so it seems a bit strange then that the psalmist David reflects on how intimately, when he reflects on how intimately God knows him, he's pretty happy about it. And this very information, I think, is very key in itself. Clearly, the God that we're being introduced to in this psalm is not like this popular myth, someone who's only interested in us in order to fill up some file that he keeps that lists all our faults. God isn't made in the image of the chief of secret police. God can be trusted. God can be trusted with this knowledge about us. And God holds this knowledge of us. He looks after it. He treasures it. God contains and respects the feelings that ebb, flow, and surge within us. God empathizes with our darkest moments, those guilty moments that live on forever in our memories like acid corroding our conscience. Take a look at a couple of verses later on, verses 19 and 20 of this psalm, and you'll see that the psalmist shares some pretty difficult and uncomfortable thoughts and feelings with God. And yet clearly God can be trusted with these. God's knowledge about us, it enters our souls and it makes its home there. And there it holds our pain gently in healing hands. And there it stands guard over our shame, side by side with us until we ourselves are ready to dismantle the protective wall we've built around it. God knows us, not in order to attack us, not in order to use his knowledge against us, but in order to accompany us through life. This is the God who, through his Son, has said, "Come to me, all who constantly struggle and who are dealing with difficult experiences, and I will give you rest." He will give us rest from our efforts to find that impossible balance between being known on the one hand and not being known on the other. He will give us rest from that hard and lonely work of sustaining a false version of who we are. He will give us rest. Something else that we can learn from the psalmist's words here is that spiritual growth can actually be understood then as a lifelong process of learning to trust God with this knowledge about us. This is what the psalmist has clearly learned to do himself. We can share everything with God. We can be who we really are with God. And being who we really are with God is the beginning of being who we really are with others. And because of that, we can become who we can be when we share this journey through life with God.